Welcome to Taiwan Talks. I'm your host, Alex Lee. Israel has been recognized the innovation nation to the world for many decades. VCs obviously played a vital role behind Israeli successful stories. Corner Venture actually is ranked among the earliest and the most successful global VC investing in Israel for a long time, and with a great track record. But very few are aware of that. Its a co-founder has the deepest roots with Taiwan, Marvin Tien. Marvin is going to be here with us to share his investment experience all the way from Silicon Valley to Israel, and how Taiwan can learn and create synergy from Israeli innovation strategy. Well, Marvin, welcome to the show. Finally made it.
Thanks, Alex. It's great to be here. I really appreciate the invitation to talk to you more about venture capital and what Corner is doing.
Sure. We know Corner Venture is a so-called traditional Silicon Valley-based VC company to start with, and turn out to be into all different kind of asset classes, particularly in the geopolitically, you pick up like Israel, right? Again, particularly as Taiwanese American. Sorry, can you show me a little bit that how you start your journey as a venture capitalist in the States?
Absolutely. So, as you know, Corner's been around investing into technology over the last 2 decades. And fortunately for me as an early entrepreneur, where I was able to have a few startups, build them up, scale them, and exit them, some good, some bad, I experienced that entrepreneurship early on. And after that, I really wanted to take what I learned and be an investor, invest in technology, and be able to sit across from the table of other entrepreneurs. You know, I sat in their seats prior. So after being able to exit some companies, I started Corner about 2 decades ago. We've been investing in different asset classes, cross geographies, a number of different stages in that time frame. And with a focus now, not just on being a global VC, but a concentration on special places like Israel. And so that's where we come to today.
Great. Well, thank you for your hospitality. Me and Peter Kurz just went to Israel with you guys. I have to confess, which I told you many times, but I still want to repeat that. That was one of the most exciting, well-planned company visit we ever had. I believe in a very short, like 3 days, we met up like 20 amazing founder, right? But again, I have to also confess that in the first place, I thought those natural reaction between you and a founder were so fake, right? But it turned out to be no. You treat them really good. You really know each other. Again, just tell us a little bit what Israel stands for you and for Corner Venture.
You were a great attendee in Israel. I'm happy to hear that you enjoyed your trip. I do remember you really enjoyed the food, though. So that was definitely my big memory. And you know what's great about that? Food is such a incredible thing. It's a way to bring people together, to have conversations, communicate, cross borders very easily. In fact, in the Jewish tradition, every 6th day there's a day of rest, and the Sabbath starts, and with Shabbat, it's really kicked off by an amazing meal, one where people get together and talk and communicate. And that's what I love so much about being in Israel and investing in Israel. That opportunity to be in a new market, a place that is often overlooked or undervalued, but be able to open up a bridge, open up a gateway for both investors of ours to be in a market where technology is growing quickly, but then have those great companies that we back be able to move to new places, be international, and open up things like Asia. You know, as a Taiwanese American, like you said, I believe in how do How do you land into new places? How do you open up new markets? How do you be someone who lives in two different places at once? And that's one thing I've really loved about investing into Israel, that commonality of being a global citizen, but a global company as well.
As far as I know, that there are some basic elements we differentiate Israel from the rest of the world, even compared to Taiwan. Can you just name few you think this is a very important element to make Israel an innovation kind of nation to the world?
Absolutely. Israel's underrated, as I mentioned. You probably wouldn't realize that a country of just under 10 million people is a technology powerhouse. This country, where 0.1% of the global population is producing 10% of all unicorns. That's a really startling figure. That's something that tells us that on the technology front, this is an absolute priority. This is an absolute area of success for this country. And so that's one reason why we've really committed to the market and have wanted to be there. As a company, we're constantly looking for innovation. And while we can find it in our home markets like the US, it's very hard to find it without lots of competition. And in going to Israel, we see that potential. Why? Like you said, one key element is the commitment they have to technology from the government. And a key place to start is with the IDF, which is their military. Taiwan's got a military service. Yeah. Israel does too, a 2-year mandatory military service. And it's something that the government actually starts to pursue and identify who those elite talents are going to be from middle school. And as they excel, unlike many other countries, the top talents are technical talents. They're not physical talents. You can think of how important physical talents are to other nations. Well, Israel prioritizes technology. And what you see is a marketplace where young people, 19, 20-year-olds, are in the military working in very elite units and managing teams of 5, 10, up to 50 people, making very important decisions on a day-to-day basis. They're becoming entrepreneurs with the help of the government. And guess what? The technologies that they build while in service, when they leave, they're able to take out and utilize for their new startups. It's a very unique creation and focus of technology. It's a really important reason why. So you've got a young population, a population that's growing. Unlike other markets, I believe even Taiwan, it's growing slowly. But Israel's the fastest growing OECD country. Its population's growing at 2% per year. It's one that's growing quickly, has young people, has government support in building unique technologies. And they've proven now that they're doing it really, really well.
And obviously, Israel is not the only country introducing the compulsory military system. I was in the Army many, many years back. I don't want to share with you how much I already achieved, right? But is there any kind of specific case you can mention? Because just like when we paid a visit to some of your founders, right? I think some of the founders are very proud to be mentioning that he was working with a particular kind of like an IDF units. That's how make it so successful here today. I'm not quite sure whether it will be too sensitive to mention one or few cases that you guys ever invested or sitting in your portfolio company to elaborate the relationship from their IDF kind of experiences to their startup.
Absolutely. You know, I won't spill any government secrets, but there are a number of very elite units, all focused on different things. Some could be in robotics, some intelligence, some in big data. And one unique thing about these units is, like think of it as a team. Like any special team, you learn to rely on each other. You learn how to work together. And in these special units, think of a place where you can recruit the #1 talent in so many different areas and know day one that they work with you. Everyone on your team is a Michael Jordan, and it allows you to be incredibly successful. Some simple examples of companies you met, Healthy IO is a company with a founder.
I remember that.
The founder is considered the very first CTO of the country, working under Shimon Peres. How often do you find someone with this experience level being a founder that you back for your next company? A well-known unit, one of the larger units, Unit 8200, this is a basic fact. In every single year over the last decade, from 2013 until now, an IDF graduate has produced a unicorn company. It's incredible success for these special units and what they're achieving today.
Great. Let's talk about your investment experiences. I probably can start from the different kind of angle that I believe you ever share with me that Silicon Valley today is no longer the same Silicon Valley as 15 or even 20 years ago. I guess that was also one of the reasons you guys decided to really diversify to some other places. Can you share with Taiwan's audience, because you can tell we still have a lot of a big fan for what happened in Silicon Valley. Can you tell us what's exactly going on there in the Silicon Valley?
Absolutely. Technology changes quickly. And so by the time this airs, who knows, maybe something will change again. But what I'll tell you is over the last 10, 15 years, technology's changed in a way that's really de-risked where it's going. The movement away from hardware and into software, where software's become easier and easier to develop over time, has enabled companies to get launched from many, many new markets. Outside of a concentrated geography like the Valley, where still wonderful companies are born every day, but being able to be in other markets now, globally, in places like Jakarta or Tel Aviv, in Tokyo or Sao Paulo, are possible now because technology is driven around software. And software can be born in many places because of its rapid de-risk. It's an interesting thing actually for Taiwanese companies to think about, because there's a really strong focus around hardware in Taiwan. And hardware has been essential for speeding up all the different areas where technology has been going over the last 40 years. But what's going on now is the demand for hardware to be driving speed and innovation has decreased. Really, software is where you're seeing that acceleration. And so when I think about your comment around Taiwanese interest in the Valley, it's great and it should be there. But what should also be recognized that being in the Valley is not necessarily going to be necessary for committing hardware. It's really going to be necessary for software. And as I just mentioned about the powerhouse that Israel is on the technology front, being born on the IDF, creating incredible software technologies, that's a market that we've been identifying closely for a number of years, and it's really proving itself out today. There's no reason not to be committing into these new markets. And as a result, there's incredible undervalue happening. And that's why as an investor, we're moving there. We think about just this last year alone, 40% of what we call these global VCs who are tourist VCs have pulled out of Israel. It means 60% year over year less deals happening. This is a place where powerhouse technologies can be invested in at discounts. And as an investor, that's where we want to go.
Well, you talk about de-risking in your investment kind of strategy. You probably want to just a little bit more. What do you mean by de-risking, particularly in the software or AI basis kind of venture?
Well, because software is globalized, because it's becoming easier and easier to develop, it has expanded like we just talked about. That alone is a de-risking event. The other things that are happening because of de-risking is the ability to invest in different stages and back different types of companies. So historically, an investor who wants to reduce their risk would invest in later and later stages. When companies' technologies are fully formed, when their go-to-market is proven, when they really need scale-up capital over anything else. But today, you're able to actually invest in earlier stages because of this fact that technology is de-risked. So investing in slightly earlier rounds, whether it's Series A or even earlier, is proving for investors to have outcomes that you've never been able to have before. You're able to generate returns without the same type of negative risk profile that you have been historically. That's an important thing. It's a shift that's been created over this last 5 to 10 years that we see as an opportunity to take advantage of. The other thing in de-risking is the fact that the world is globalized. You can diversify quickly and scale up quickly if you view your market as the whole world's market. And I think one of the risks you have is building a technology for your local ecosystem. Israeli companies don't do that. They're small. The country's small. They know day one that they have to build to be in the US, Europe, and Asia. It enables them to have a very large addressable market immediately and not face the same kinds of scaling risks that you see in many, many other companies who form regionally. One thing I oftentimes think about with Taiwan is it's blessed with an incredible ecosystem of supply chain and precision manufacturing. The downside of that is when you're investing in Taiwan in a startup, the startup often is created to feed into that supply chain, to be acquired by one of these big giant companies in Taiwan. The issue for them there is it limits the upside, and it actually doesn't create a de-risking event. It creates a dependency event. And we see that as something that needs to change for Taiwan, something that needs to change for a number of other venture markets and technology markets where you need to think globally much more importantly than locally.
I guess you are referring to the total addressable market, right? As we discussed in a couple kind of occasion, if I try to compare the capital valuation kind of formation along with your Israeli kind of experiences, I vividly remember starting from an A round, the valuation roughly about the same here in Taiwan and Israel. But the big difference starting from after the B round. And most of the, based on my experiences though, most of the a Taiwan software company particularly will tend to stock at a $20 million US valuation, stay there for long. If they have no choice, that's the word. If no choice, they are pushed for the IPO. But that wasn't the cases in Israel because you go through the C round or even afterward, as average, I think you are talking about the C round, those are Israeli kind of a venture can go up to 500 to 600 million above. Can you just share more experiences that what have you seen
Absolutely.
between Taiwan and Israel?
Absolutely. You're right on actually. I think again, one of the challenges for markets, like you mentioned, Taiwan, is it's blessed with a domestic supply chain of technology that has a number of different ways to exit. The ability to sell to the local market becomes very tempting when the company reaches a Series A, opportunities to exit through M&A or exit through a domestic IPO market, which is historically what's happened, lead companies and their investors to make decisions in a conservative way, and one that fits the local TAM, the local total addressable market. Look at Israel as a comparison. Israeli companies, when they're born, really rarely consider themselves to be local companies. If we meet companies that only want to play locally, they're just not the right companies for us to invest into. So addressing and building a company that's a global company, you have an incredibly large TAM. The second thing that happens is when you have a few very successful outcomes, it starts to train the investors and employees and founders to want to build something bigger. They understand what that road feels like, the ups and downs of it, and the good and bad. And once they experience that, they more and more want to build large companies. And the opportunity then becomes for the third point, which is they set their sights on being just as big as a Silicon Valley-based company, just as large as any other global giant company can be. And as a result, those valuations you see with these Israeli companies that we've been sharing and talking about do continue to grow well beyond the equivalent valuations that you see in Taiwan. Mm-hmm. That's a big distinction. If you want to be an investor and maximize your returns, you have to look at other markets where that ecosystem has that exit potential that we're talking about. Taking on venture risk, you should be rewarded with venture returns, which is impossible if you're going to off-ramp the company at an earlier stage. You have to build for something much larger.
Sure. Well, this part probably specific. I'm asking on behalf of some of the young founder here in Taiwan, particularly for software company, right? Do you see, is there any reason Taiwanese founder can be matching whatever you're just describing for the Israel company? Is there anything reason you don't think that Taiwanese kind of a founder can make it?
Taiwanese founders are absolutely the hardest working people in the world. It's something that I find a lot of pride in, being of Taiwanese descent. So first and foremost, absolutely not. The individual founders have the energy, the desire, and the work effort to do any and everything that an Israeli founder or anyone from Silicon Valley can do. The things that are missing, the pieces of the puzzle that are missing, are things like the investor base. You need an investor who's willing to commit to a vision. And when an opportunity arises to sell a company, maybe it's a difficult choice to keep going. But it's something that an investor has to be willing to back a founder and say, this is an incredible opportunity for us to sell, but our plan is to go bigger. And it may not always work out, and it's a difficult discussion, but having an investor to support a founder to continue to grow beyond a short-term opportunity and maximize the full potential to the long-term opportunity is something that's really, really required. I think the second thing is a cultural shift. In Taiwan and many parts of the world, in Asia and others, failing is a big problem. Mm-hmm. And failing is never great, but there's incredible learnings that happen from failing. And to understand and support founders who have failed before in another effort, in a new company, in something else, is something that I hope the investor base in the community can change their views on. Just because a founder failed once, I think of it as they just got their PhD in business, and they can now take that information and build an even bigger, better company. So I think there's a cultural shift that needs to happen there. And then finally, I think there's a need to consider the overall change from where Taiwan is on being a hardware country, a country driven around the TSMC ecosystem, into trying new things, into trying to look at where software can take us, where building something novel around the TSMC or other big company ecosystems can be absolutely game-changing, and taking a look at AI. This is an opportunity for Taiwan to leapfrog and move forward and past any of the conservative view of how they look at technology in the past, and jump forward faster and bigger and more quickly than potentially some of the competing countries and what they're doing today.
Mm. Well, let's talk about founders. That's universally the same. They take a risk, right? They're going through all kind of difficulty try to get to be the other end, right? I have to say I was very impressed about the interaction between you and all of the founder in our kind of Israeli trip, right? And I also know that mingle with the founder and create a synergy and value among the founder ecosystem is one of the very important part in your playbook. Can you just elaborate a little bit what founders mean to you to your investor and your kind of venture build up?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think there's two things there. So one is, I see our role as not being the boss of a founder, not being the teacher of a founder. I really see us as being a teammate of the founder. We actually can only go so far as they can take us. And when you recognize that, you know that there's no reason other than having a great relationship with your founders. That enables us to have really open and direct communication, because absolutely bad things will happen along the way, just like good things do too. But solving those bad things quickly is much easier to do when you can talk to one another, when you can, share an idea, concern, or an issue casually, and make decisions then professionally. And so those relationships you saw were real, and I think are important to us because it allows us to make the most important decisions through good relationships with the other people on our team, as I like to think of it. But we also stay active with all founders that we don't even invest into. And I think this is the other thing you're talking about, which is, in a small market like Israel, just like, a very tight market like Taiwan, being able to help everyone around you, being able to be seen as a group that cares not just about your own companies, but about potentially other companies that are doing interesting things is important. And for us, we like to be thought of as the group that is global in nature and wants to open the doors, particularly internationally and to Asia. And that leads a lot of people your way. And the more people you know, the easier it is to continue to source wonderful opportunities, also diligence opportunities that you may be looking at through a wider network, and recruit and hire. At the end of the day, the only tool, the only weapon you really have are the people that you're able to recruit and hire into your companies. And so being active in the marketplace, not just as an investor, but as a good citizen, as a good group of people that others want to seek advice from, is worth the time and is worth the commitments. It's frankly the hardest thing that we do, both from a time commitment and emotionally, but I think it's one of the most important things we do.
I believe that we were also talking about how, like a founder, not only bring you another founder networking for another deal, but also the successful founder tend to be repeated success again and again. Can you also kind of explain a little bit? I bet this is not only happening in Israel, it's probably more like a universal thing in the world. Can you share with your thought?
Absolutely. This is a funny thing. I think a lot of people believe just kind of your common sense is if a founder has a great outcome, maybe makes a lot of money, he wants to go retire on a beach. And that may be true. I like beaches too. But the truth is that really great founders just are never satisfied. They really want to continue to innovate. They want to build, they want to create. And that is a very addictive thing. And it's a powerful thing. And when you have certain founders that have that desire and that demand, they want to not just change the world or change an industry in one area, but they want to take those learnings that they had in their first exit and build another company that maybe helps them attack a new space in industry. And you see it in many ways. Think of a head coach on a sports team who then trains a number of assistant coaches, and they win a championship. Those assistant coaches go on and build their own companies or their own teams, and then they win championships, and it continues, and there becomes a tree of incredible legacy, all built around one person or one company. If you knew Elon Musk and you invested in him early, and then were led into PayPal, and then led into Tesla, and then SpaceX, and onward, you had an opportunity to back one of the top 5 entrepreneurs in every single cycle over the last 20 years. That kind of notion of backing a founder repeatedly is really important. It means you got to work with these founders, identify them early, and not be scared of them losing that fire as they go forward. So it's a really important thing. It's part of our core part of what we do, and maybe a slight differentiator in what we do versus others.
Sure. Well, let's talk about investment as a whole, right? As your professionals, right? If you look at the whole world, again, which is experienced some sort of like a universal downturn in the last 18 months soon after, like the world just walk away from the COVID, right? I got two questions for you. Of course, the IPO market and the overall venture market still remain pretty low or distressed for now. I'm not quite sure my observation is right. And what's your take? What's going to happen in the next like a 12 to 18 months? Well, let's start with the question first in the first place.
Yeah, I think one interesting thing about investing in technology is it doesn't sleep, and it constantly is growing and innovating. I mean, think about this, kind of recessionary period we had. In this current time, you've probably had one of the most important companies emerge publicly, which is OpenAI and their tools around ChatGPT. You would say that this could be the most transformative technology to be released. Certainly in maybe my business life that remains, AI will be a dominant feature. And in this period of time of a recession or a pullback, this company fully emerged. So what does that say? Does that say that that good opportunities and good companies slow down? No, it means that technology continues to grow and compound on top of itself. Where does that go for technology investments? It means it's a great time to invest. And in these slow cycles, in these reverse times, companies, household names are born. Some reasons why. One is they become very efficient on capital. The capital they receive, they use very well. Probably even more importantly, they can recruit. Top talents have to migrate from other startups they're in or larger companies that need to scale back. Recruiting really core talent becomes much easier. And thirdly, the companies on the fringes, the ones that probably shouldn't exist, go away. And so from a private investing standpoint, investing into technology companies now is wonderful. You get the right valuations, technology never sleeps, and we're able to take a long-term view, or at least a longer-term view than the immediate day-to-day stock market, mark-to-market. But we're seeing some green shoots kind of growing, and it means that there's going to be an opportunity for M&A and IPOs, not too distant future. So we're looking forward to that, and I think that's what we're planning around.
Sure. I believe that you are still the believer of those so-called asymmetric growth or power laws still apply to the future kind of technology venture. The same thing, we heard a lot of things going on, like a social unrest, protests in Israel. Again, I believe the similar kind of argument for Taiwan too, right? Geopolitical tension, not specific for Israel, but for Israel as well as a Taiwan investment opportunity. What's your take? Is it for global investor, are these two countries, or Israel first, represent a good investment opportunity now?
Yeah, it's funny because I remember when you visited was only days after a large kind of full population protest. And one thing that happens is when you're actually in a number of these places that are not well understood or not well visited, you realize that when you're actually in those locally, they actually feel safer than probably your own home country.
Yeah.
And it highlights the importance of being local. Yeah. If you're not there, you really never have the opportunity just to see what's happening, just how much energy is created around a given market, how much common thought and pressure gets created to do a great thing. And so I really believe that a country like Israel, which is, by the way, making incredible breakthroughs with foreign policy, the Abraham Accords, signing now across the Gulf and the Middle East, is now opening up new channels for the country politically that have never existed before. So I've never been more bullish on the possibilities that exist for Israel and the continued reduction of political unrest. So Israel, for not just us, but I think for a number of other investors, is a wonderful place to be. It also, for strategic investors, creates a real gateway to enable, a small country like Israel that punches way above its weight to create linkages, synergies that can enable big cross-border opportunities. Unlike other places, U.S. companies have their own channels. They know what they're doing day one. Israel doesn't. The young companies need other pathways. They need strategic partners from early on. So we absolutely advocate for Israel, the right type of tech country, the right type of valuation, the right type of mindset, in actually a very secure environment to expand.
Great. That's a flip the card to the other side. Again, as a Taiwanese American, right? What would you suggest that how Taiwan can learn or leverage from all this successful story from Israel?
Well, I think the first thing that a Taiwanese, founder or investor can do is bring a better boba tea to Israel. I think that's really lacking right now. So that's probably the first move. But honestly, there's so much to learn from one another, and it's hard to know in any given time, what's best. But what I do see in Taiwan is one thing is a nice thing is a willingness to support founders. It's changed, and it's changed for the better in Taiwan. But as I mentioned previously, the next step is to improve on the mindset of what a technology and venture investment means. It means you're taking a lot of risk, but you're expecting something phenomenal to happen. You're expecting the company you invest in to enlarge a market, to create something that didn't exist before. You're expecting an opportunity to earn a return commensurate with that type of risk, which means when an early opportunity to make a small return exists, unless the company's not doing well, to push through that and keep going. And finally, it means an opportunity to build on the leverage that Taiwan has of knowing its gateway point to all of Asia, to almost the entire globe that needs the products that Taiwan creates. Create leverage there, build opportunities to suck in new partners into the Taiwan ecosystem. And the combination of these things, I think, are really important for Taiwan to really, integrate. It's a really a good moment for Taiwan to jump and make a big jump forward, and not just take the normal steps that can be more comfortable and historically, maybe more practiced.
I have to ask this question, right? Just in case you are invited to share to a group of Taiwan hardware business leader. By the way, I probably share with you that the hardware sector, including semiconductor and the rest of them, represent roughly about close to 70% of the total Taiwan market for the whole market capitalization, right? What would you say to them? Again, no any reservation.
Okay. Well, no reservations is always something, but I think that this is their time to use their position in the market as a jumping-off point. If I were sitting in their boardrooms, I would be wondering, what the future holds. It's not so clear. it's not so certain that high growth will be on the horizon. And I would say to them, we need to start diversifying into areas we may be uncomfortable with, which could include new geographies. We need to be looking for where the future partners of the world are going to come from, which could mean places they've never really been to, like in Israel. And we need to understand how accelerating technologies like software could surpass our business, and how we can have a role and a stake in that today, so we understand how to integrate that into our roadmap, or maybe even diversify our roadmap into something else. Because we have leverage right now. At some level, we have international voice, and we can't let this special moment in time move past us to the point where we regret it. That may not be the funnest meeting to go to, but I'm happy to have that, and we should do that.
Yeah, I got the rain check. That's gonna be the topic for the next episode, together with, on the one hand, a bunch of like young founders, whereas at the other side, you got a well-established kind of business leader there. Anyway.
Great, let's do that.
Looking
forward to that. Alex, thanks so much. I really appreciated the time.
No, thank you for coming. I know you got a very busy schedule here in Taiwan.
QIC is the best, so are you. So
Thank you.
Thanks again.